I'm Captain Logan, and here's Jayson, and today Jayson wants to talk about Spider-Man. We've done Superman.
Yep.
And we've done Star Trek.
Yep.
And we've done action movies.
Yep.
And what was the last one we did?
Sonic
the Hedgehog. So today we're going to talk about Spider-Man, and as usual, I'm going to throw some random questions about the topic at Jayson. You'll probably hear us talk about some things we've talked about before. We'll try not to, rehash too terribly much, but we'll revisit some things. We'll talk about ins and outs of everything in the lore and history that we can think of in, 45 minutes or an hour. And Jayson Tank Gunner is there in the comments. Always nice to see him. He is in the UK and isn't always able to show up live, so it's really cool to see him. Hi there.
Yeah, it's cool.
And he says, who is Jayson's favorite Spider-Man actor? So I guess we'll start there.
Okay, that'll be Andrew Garfield.
Oh yeah, you're a big fan of Amazing.
I'm a big fan of Amazing 1, not 2.
I always forget about that.
Yeah, I'm a big Amazing guy. It's probably my favorite Spider-Man movie.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Just live action, or do you put it even over the Spider-Verse movies?
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I just ask that because there's a lot of people that think the Spider-Verse movies are the best superhero movies ever made.
Yeah.
And put them over the Spider-Man movies and every other superhero thing at this point.
Yeah.
Or at least that first one.
Which I don't really agree with. I liked the first one. It was a good movie. I don't think it's one of the best superhero movies of all time. I don't even think I would put it on a top 10 list, honestly. I might put Across on a top 10 list, but...
You might put what now?
Across the Spider-Verse.
Oh, Across the Spider-Verse, yeah.
But...
I think I like it better than the original.
Yeah.
But some of that is just personal taste stuff. They used two of my favorite things in Spider-Man I didn't think anybody else cared about.
Yeah, that's true.
And did pretty cool things with them with 2099 and The Spot. But anyway, so what is it about Amazing and, why do you love Garfield so much? And why do you put that particular movie above everything else?
It actually did the origin story thing right. And I'm not the biggest fan of origin stories. That's part of the reason why I'm not the biggest fan of Begins and other things. I'm just not the biggest origin story guy. And they actually kind of did it right.
But Begins is a really good origin.
Yeah, and then I got a sequel that's way better than the first one.
Okay, fair enough. Speak up a little bit.
And I think Garfield is just really good as Peter Parker. I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it. He's just, he very well fits that role.
Okay, so just putting you on the spot because it's probably been a while since you've watched these,
Yeah.
but what is it about the way Amazing handles the origin versus the way Raimi did it that you like better?
It's a lot more...
Because it is certainly a reinvention.
Yeah. It's a lot more serious with it, I feel like, and a lot more, story-driven than, he gets his powers, and... he's figuring out he can do cool stuff with it. He does...
I mean, Amazing does that too.
He does do that, but it also has other stuff as well.
And it has some of the same problems of people see impossible things they couldn't begin to explain and don't really ask questions.
Yeah.
Both movies do that.
Yeah, that is true.
He throws a football and it hits the goalpost and bends it and nobody cares.
No one cares, yeah. that is a problem with every Spider-Man movie that does origin stories, I feel like, but yeah.
So do you feel like, and when you say every one, we've only got the two because the MCU avoided it like the plague.
Yeah.
And went too far in the other direction where you don't even know if there's an Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
And even after No Way Home, you don't really know if he had an Uncle Ben. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
I guess probably. But you have the other Spider-Mans talking about their Uncle Bens. And then you have MCU Spider-Man just kind of standing there.
Yeah, he doesn't really say much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to really question if he has an Uncle Ben when they kind of play that movie almost like he's losing his Uncle Ben finally.
Yeah.
They weirdly kind of treat Aunt May sort of that way.
Yeah.
I don't know. So getting back to Amazing, so do you feel like it's maybe just a little, when you say more serious, do you think the origin is maybe a little bit less contrived somehow?
Yeah. And I like all this stuff with like I haven't seen it in a while, but I like all the stuff with like the scientist stuff and like his dad and stuff. I don't. Yeah.
But see, that's the stuff that I
thing-
find super contrived and convoluted with that movie.
Yeah. I
If that guy hadn't dropped that piece of paper, you don't even have a movie.
yeah. I do think the villain plot is not the best, but
No. Well, famously, and I agree with this, but the kind of consensus with that movie is, or with the Webb movies versus the Raimi movies, is Raimi knew how to do the action stuff, but wasn't as good at the human side of it. Or at least the scripts weren't strong enough in the relationship department.
Yeah.
And Mark Webb was going totally in the other direction, where the action stuff is not great.
Yeah. It's not the best.
He doesn't really know how to do the comic book stuff, but the relationship stuff is spectacular,
It's
to use a
really
Spider-Man
good, yeah.
word. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how we just started right with movies. Do you recall? First of all, let me go to the comments. Hi, DJ. How's it going? I miss you too, DJ. We didn't do a show this week. We'll be back in a couple weeks with our regular schedule again, our regularly scheduled broadcasts. But good to see you, DJ. And DJ, if you're here for a bit, would you consider throwing a Spider-Man question or two at Jayson?
No.
Because DJ's a big Spider-Man guy.
Yeah.
And he's been collecting all of the Marvel Legends Spider-Man stuff. And he's got a killer-looking collection now. It's neat. He's... I'm sure he'll tell me. I don't know what his piece count is right now, but it's got to be at least 25, if not 30.
Yeah.
He might even have more than that. But he's been collecting them for his kid, and they have a really nice display. And he's got stuff recently that I really want. He got the Doppelganger, which is your mom's favorite Spider-Man villain.
Yeah.
Do you remember Doppelganger?
Yes.
He's from Maximum Carnage.
That's in a 90s episode, right?
Does Doppelganger show up in the 90s show? You know, I always think of it as kind of associated with that just because I have an action figure from that line. Because I think the 90s figures were doing some stuff that was in the comics and not in the show, or maybe they just had a line that looked so much like that and in that scale. I'm fuzzy now. I don't remember. They've been doing like reproduction figures lately that are in that old box style from the 90s show, but doing characters that were never in that. And I think they might have done a little bit of that back then too. So yeah, I don't think Doppelganger actually shows up in that show.
Okay.
And neither does Shriek and
yeah,
a lot of that Maximum Carnage stuff.
And I haven't read Maximum Carnage at all.
We started reading the first issue together once,
yeah,
which was hilarious because we were divvying up the parts and reading it out loud dramatically, and that was fun.
That was really
we should do that at some point.
Yeah.
I wonder if anybody would watch a video of us just doing a dramatic reading of a comic like that.
That would be really fun.
I've been wanting to do more of that. I did a dramatic reading of an Iron Fist book years ago that was all narration without hardly any dialogue balloons, and it did really well, and people thought it was fun. And that it was a 70s Iron Fist comic. It was just hilarious. It was just him going up a building, like the inside of a building, and you go into a bunch of death traps. And it was wonderfully melodramatic, and I've been looking for another issue like that.
Didn't you do that once, like a year ago or something? Where you did something like that?
I don't think so.
I think you did. I don't remember.
I tried a reading of Last Ronin, the Ninja Turtles book, and I kind of did a color commentary on it as I went along. So like I read everything out loud, and then I also discussed it as I went along.
Okay.
It was a weird kind of niche thing. I didn't have a big crowd for it, but people that watched it seemed to like it.
Yeah.
It was kind of fun to do. I don't know if I'll ever do that again, but it was kind of fun to do. Anyway, I'm sorry. Spider-Man. So, what, if you can recall, do you have any idea what your introduction to Spider-Man is? Because obviously with superhero stuff, living in my house, you're just going to be surrounded by it all the time. But do you have any idea, like, what the first thing might have been that you read or that you watched? Or was it probably a cartoon? Or was it maybe even, like, a kid's comic? Or...
What do I think? I think early on, I might have grew up with a little bit of the 90s show. I think.
Okay.
A little bit. the first big Spider-Man thing that I remember was 2014 when Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out.
Oh no.
And we went to that was the first movie I remember watching in the theater.
Is it really?
And yeah, and
I guess you would have only been 4 at that time, which is
in Louisiana.
Did we really?
We did.
Had I seen it and reviewed it already, or
no? I think that was the first time.
First time I saw it was Louisiana.
I'm
pretty
sure.
I don't think that's right, but
at least I saw it in Louisiana. I couldn't think if I can't remember if you had watched it already or if that was your first time.
That's weird because I don't know how much overlap there was in 2014 with that and Winter Soldier, but I thought we saw Winter Soldier when we made that trip. No one's gonna care about this, but anyway. So Amazing 2 is one of your first major memories of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And when you first saw it, did you find it perplexing and bizarre and crazy, or did you like it just for the Spider-Man action?
I think I just liked it for the Spider-Man action, and now it's just not very good at all, and it has Dino.
Do you think that movie is as bad as its reputation? Because I mean, it is majorly maligned. Like, people hate that movie.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think honestly, it's probably worse than 3.
You think it's worse than 3?
I think it's worse than 3.
But I think 3 is boring, and I don't have that with 2.
That's true.
I mean, it's also perplexing and bizarre, but yeah.
I think 3 is just bad. Like, it's not good, but it's not terrible. It's just kind of bad.
Okay. I think it's terrible, but sure.
Yeah.
My thing with 3 is it's bad, and I don't mean to just re-review everything I've reviewed before, and people know how I feel about this stuff, but like, it's boring. But it's in places particularly, by the middle. But it's also heavily retconning, and that ticks me off more than anything.
Oh yeah.
In a thing, when you go back and kind of ruin what was working about a thing before by adding convoluted random crap to it, like super unnecessarily. I don't mean that makes it difficult for me to go back to 1. Like, obviously I can ignore it. But, like, while I'm watching it, I'm like, you're just piling stuff on to what was working about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a really kind of piss-poor adaptation of the black costume and all that. So it was taking a lot of my favorite stuff.
Yeah. And I think
that it had no interest in doing.
I think Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2 are both kind of in the same boat for me, where they're both just bad.
Yeah.
Like,
sure.
I'll watch them. I'll watch Spider-Man 3 again.
Well, we watched that trilogy to do a podcast once, I think.
Yeah.
Didn't we do an old father and son on that?
I think we did.
And was that your first time seeing 3, probably?
It was, yeah.
But we can both agree.
The same time I saw BVS.
And we've talked about this, but we can both agree that movie has a wonderful Venom theme.
Oh yeah, it's got some probably cool one of the best scores in Spider-Man movies, or in superhero movies, honestly.
I also guess I just love that orchestral motif because it goes da-na-na-na-na, da-na-na-na, and I love that in X-Men too. Da-na-na-na-na.
You just love da-na-na-na-na.
The key's different. I guess I just really like da-na-na-na-na.
Yeah. And then I think I'm on the same page with Far From Home and No Way Home, where they're both on the same page. Like, I'll watch them again, but they're not very good. Like,
you didn't care for No Way Home?
No Way Home was fun.
I can't remember if you reviewed that with us or not.
No, I don't think I did. That movie was fun. It didn't work.
Yeah.
It was just kind of there to be there. And it didn't have a very good plot or anything. But, I actually enjoyed Far From Home in the theater, and then I watched it again, and that was, like, one of the worst watches I've ever had of that movie. And then it just kind of got worse every time I watched it.
I have also had that with Far From Home. It's a little bit, in a weird way, it's a little bit like Man of Steel for me. Except Man of Steel, the first time I watched it, I loved. I thought it was brilliant. I was reading into that some cool ideas that it didn't do enough with, but I was liking them conceptually enough that I wasn't appreciating how the execution wasn't there.
Yeah.
With Far From Home, I think I was so impressed with the revelation in the middle of what we're really doing with Mysterio that I kind of gave the movie maybe too much leeway.
Yeah.
And I ignored some of the intrusive comedy. And the more I've seen it, the less I've liked it. In some ways, I actually think that movie holds together better than No Way Home.
Oh, me too.
But I think No Way Home is certainly more entertaining.
Yeah.
So, like, if I have to put those up against each other as narratives,
Yeah.
Far From Home wins.
Right. But I think action-wise, No Way Home wins.
Does it? Yeah, I mean, maybe.
I think maybe it does.
But anyway, how much novelty was there for you with the nostalgia bait stuff with No Way Home?
With No Way Home.
With bringing back the villains from the Raimi movies and getting to see those Spider-Mans again? Like, was that a big deal for you? Like it was for a lot of people?
I mean, yeah. I thought, yeah, I mean, I did, and I did enjoy, most of the people coming back, and I enjoyed, and, I mean, I don't know. It's just, that was the time when, like, so many movies were doing that I just had gotten kind of sick of it, and I was just like, okay, do we have to keep doing this?
Yeah.
And then Spider-Man does it, and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, it's cool.
Well,
but
what do you mean so many movies were doing it, though? Because that really kind of set the precedent for that. I mean, you had seen it on television and with Turtles Forever and that kind of thing. Like, you were kind of already familiar, obviously, with the multiverse concept, but even with mixing different continuities together like that, the crossover thing, and you've seen crossovers in many different media.
Yeah.
But I think for general audiences, it was a big deal because it had never been done before.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like Avengers all over again for people, where it was like, oh, this is a thing you can do with movies. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
I couldn't remember if.
And that's a novelty I had a hard time appreciating because we just did it with the CW superhero shows a couple years before that.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and I wasn't the biggest fan of, like, all the references and stuff. Like, I don't know. It was fine, but, and I did enjoy it. It just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's real contrived.
Yeah.
And throws Doctor Strange under the bus so hard. But I don't want to just use this to bash No Way Home again.
Yeah.
And as I've said many times, I enjoyed it, I think, more than a lot of my friends and colleagues on the channel did. Because most of our guys really dislike that movie. And what I was going to say with that and Far From Home is, I'll say this real quick. The differences in my ongoing appreciation for those movies. Yeah. Far From Home, every time I've seen it, I've progressively disliked it more. No Way Home, I enjoyed the first time out, and I think the novelty of some of that stuff grabbed me enough that in the back of my mind I'm going, I don't think this story is very good, but I don't know how much I care right now.
Yeah.
And then when I saw it a second time, it was like a 60% deflation, where, like, it did not hold up on a second viewing at all.
Okay, I haven't seen it since the theater. And
some of it is, even on first viewing, that ending just pissed me off.
Yeah.
I hate that ending with a burning passion.
Yeah.
But everything up to that was, not great, but I was entertained by it.
Yeah.
The big thing for me was I just appreciated that the other two Spider-Mans don't show up in just the last 5 minutes and save the day and leave, like in Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yeah.
Like, if Ghostbusters Afterlife came out after that movie, I'd probably dislike it more when I first see it.
Yeah.
I imagine. And hilariously, those are both Sony movies. But anyway, we've been talking a lot of screen stuff. So, I don't know, franchise-wise, I don't know, I guess it's hard to rank with franchises because you really dislike that second movie with Amazing. So
Yeah.
you wouldn't even really put that as like the top of franchises, probably just that franchise, but amazing. You'd put at the top of the litter.
Yeah. Amazing, I would put at the top.
But then, as far as like just full on franchises, does Raimi's trilogy probably hold up the best over everything else for you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, I mean, besides the Spider-Verse movies, because I feel like the Spider-Verse movies are honestly the best series, even better than the Raimi series.
So far, we'll see how they stick the landing
Yeah.
when the last one comes out.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where I'm at with it. So, but do you feel like those are great Spider-Man movies?
The Spider-Verse movies?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or do you just like them, for all the trappings? Because different people feel differently about it. I think in a lot of ways they captured the spirit of, even though they're not featuring Peter Parker right at the center, particularly after that first one, they're I think they captured the spirit of what that whole thing is all about, and they get the power and responsibility thing right, and the actions and consequences better than anything else.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I really appreciate about them.
Yeah, I really like them as Spider-Man. I like because the problem is that second movie, I thought all the drama stuff was kind of boring, but I really liked all the like the action and stuff. And that's not even, I feel like that's not even me at my age. I feel like it was just kind of boring. And then, because...
Have you seen that a second time yet?
I have not.
Okay, the pacing of all that worked a lot better for me on a second viewing.
Okay.
So I'll be interested to see if you have that too.
Yeah.
Because I actually agreed with you first viewing. And then
Okay.
when I reviewed it, I stepped back on that a little bit because I
Okay.
felt better about it on another watch.
Okay.
We did have a long conversation about that.
Yeah, we
In the... Were you there for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were on that video.
I was on that video.
Anyway. Okay, favorite Spider-Man villains. Somebody just asked us that. Nicholas Bodo.
Okay.
Top 3, go.
Top 3.
Top 3 Spider-Man villains in no particular order.
Villains. Ooh, man. Doc Ock is up there.
Yeah. What iteration specifically?
Oh,
Because Spider-Man's rogues are like the Batman rogues, where they've all been reinvented so many different times. There's so many different versions of them.
Yeah, Raimi.
Raimi Doc Ock?
Yeah.
Sure.
And like 80s Doc Ock.
Like comic book Doc
Like
Ock?
comic book Doc Ock, yeah.
How do you feel about, and I haven't played it in a while, so I can't speak to it real well,
Yeah.
but do you like PS4 Doc Ock? Have you seen the resolution of all of that yet?
I have, because I watched Freddy play it.
Okay. I wasn't sure how far into
and
the story you'd gotten with that.
Yeah,
But
he's pretty good.
did you like their angle on that, where
Yeah.
they start off as friends, and
Yeah, I do really.
Peter Parker's working for him as an intern, or
Yeah.
kind of has a similar relationship with him that he does with Doc Connors,
Yeah,
actually. Okay, so Doc Ock is up there.
Doc Ock.
Who else?
Man, I'm trying to think.
Huge rogues gallery.
Huge
So
rogues
many
gallery.
different things you could be
So many
saying right now.
different things. Maybe Black Cat. Maybe.
Oh yeah, sure.
I
But
do really like
Black Cat, of course, has that, and I mean it's a little derivative. It has that Catwoman thing to some degree.
Yeah.
Where she kind of goes back and forth between villain and hero.
Yeah.
Was it with cats?
I also really like Venom.
Well, you're my kid.
Yeah.
Your mom and I are huge Venom nuts, so we raised you
Yeah.
guys real hard with Venom.
I feel like once I read Maximum Carnage, I'll be a big Carnage fan. Like, I like that suit a lot and stuff. I just don't have much experience with him. And the experience that I have had with him was not great, so.
Because you saw Venom 2?
I did.
Yeah.
What is...
I feel the need to apologize as a father for taking you to that movie. So, sometimes we'll walk out of a theater and I'm like, I don't know, does it constitute child abuse if I didn't know what it was going to be like before we watched it?
when I actually did like that first movie.
I don't mean to abuse my children, with terrible cinema. I really don't. You did like that first movie.
Yeah.
There's not a lot to Cletus Cassidy. I mean,
Yeah.
he's an intentionally somewhat one note or two note, if you like, villain, where he's a natural born psychopath, or maybe it's upbringing. Yeah, there's a little bit of a nature nurture thing there, of course.
Yeah.
And then he and the symbiote blend together to make him even more terrifying and sadistic.
Yeah.
Because the symbiote is also that way. So.
Yeah.
It's a match made in hell, I guess. Mutali just put in a super chat. Thanks, man. How different would Spider-Man TAS have been if Dini and Tim did it, and Semper did Batman TAS? Could you even imagine that? Also, thoughts on the animators being overworked for Amazing Spider-Man or ASTV. I actually don't know what that means. ASTV.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what that acronym means. Somebody clue me in on that in the comments if you wouldn't mind, because I feel like that could mean 2 or 3 different things. But yeah, if he meant, because I thought maybe he was talking about the '90s show, and I'm like, well, if that was true, because I know they had like rush deadlines and stuff with that show, and if that's what he was talking about, well, you could just tell in the animation, and by the fact that they had to do flashbacks constantly. Yeah. But that's probably not what he's talking about. So anyway, we'll answer that first part. Across the Spider-Verse. Okay. Sorry, I'm bad with acronyms in the moment. I'm like going through my brain. You just mentioned '90s Spider-Man, and now I gotta remember it. Across the Spider-Verse. Okay. Right, because that news came out recently. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll weigh in on that real quick. Jason doesn't really know about that. But yeah, the whole thing with that, Jason, was Lord and Miller apparently would, this is alleged, I guess, they would have the animators do complete 100% sequences, rendered, put in a lot of man hours, and then they wouldn't like something about them, and they would make them go back and completely redo them. So it wasn't even we don't like your storyboards, redraw them, or we don't like your like initial animatics, redo them. It was, you have almost like print ready, put in the movie theater sequence, go back to the drawing board. That's kind of rough, and I can see both sides to it to some degree, where like I get the rigors of the creative process, and that you don't always know what you want until you see it at the end of the day. But it's a little bit, weird. I just had this thought. It's a little bit in a weird way like method acting, where, yeah, there's a place where you can cross the line and go too far. Where like maybe it's not fair to let them get that far in the process before you say go back. And at the very least, like, make sure that they're not too overworked, and that you have enough, or that you have enough animators that it makes sense to work that way. If you just don't have the resources, and those are not cheap movies, but I mean, obviously, but if you don't have the resources to operate that way, then it's maybe unrealistic to work like that. So
yeah.
I get it from the creative side, but I think at some point it gets kind of impractical. Yeah. And this has been a problem with visual effects for years now, and particularly with Disney, but and this is not Disney, but particularly with Disney, but like kind of everywhere, where you just have these like really overworked, like underappreciated CG artists that are just killing themselves trying to get work out, and then they're rushed and worked to the bone, and then when the thing comes out, it's not even, it doesn't look as good as it could, or it's not totally finished, and so then they get the crap for it not looking like it should, and they're not getting paid enough, and they're not, getting to spend enough time with their families and all of that. Like, yeah, that's all rough, and I get that the creative process is with movie making and TV making and all of that, like, it's always long hours, it's always a lot, but those guys are getting pushed much farther than is reasonable, I think. But anyway, so I didn't mean to go that long about that, but I wasn't expecting that question, so I was like, where do I want to go with that? But yeah, so if the Batman TAS team got Spider-Man instead, Jason, what do you think that would have looked like?
Oh man, that would have been actually really cool. But would you rather have a really cool, dark and gritty Batman show and a really silly and fun Spider-Man show, or a really dark and gritty Spider-Man show and a really silly and fun Batman show? Like,
I think at the end of the day, I'm glad it worked out the way it worked out.
yeah.
Because I wouldn't have wanted that Spider-Man show at the expense of Batman. I don't think, because I think Batman the Animated Series was so influential on Batman moving forward, and it's in a lot of ways the quintessential version.
Yeah.
That of course I'm glad that happened instead. But yeah, like what would have Semper done with Batman? I don't think it's a silly show under Semper, or I should say, I don't think it's a Saturday morning cartoon show under Semper. Any more than, of course, the 90s Spider-Man show was. Like, I think in his mind, it would be very serious and layered and character-driven.
Yeah.
But I think it would have been hilarious. Like,
Yeah.
like it ultimately would have been silly. But what's silly about it is the show doesn't know. It's not aware of that.
Yeah. Oh, and it would have nothing but three-parters.
But that would be okay. I mean, you could totally do a season of Batman like that.
Oh yeah.
The really interesting question with this is, how much more competent does Semper look with the kind of resources and time that they had at the Fox office? Or I'm sorry, at the Batman office over at the Marvel, Fox office, because with I mean, all that stuff was on Fox Kids, but with I guess I'm saying like Warner's versus the Spider-Man Fox office, the Marvel Fox office, because what you had with the shows on under Warner Brothers was Spielberg behind it all. And Spielberg wasn't directly related to Batman, but because of the success of Tiny Toons, Batman was able to be handled the way it was, and they just had a lot more time to get everything right with Batman.
Yeah.
In a way they didn't with Spider-Man. Now, in some ways, X-Men fared better than Spider-Man did, at least on a narrative level, but it had a lot of silly, like, corner cutting and stuff, just like Spider-Man did.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have had that with Batman if Semper had, even if it was Semper.
Yeah.
At the Warner Brothers office. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
But I think there still would have been a lot of scenes that would have shown through the writing.
Yeah. That.
Because he's not the writer. He's not the writer he thinks he is.
Yeah, that was a really funny question.
No, that's a great question.
I've been trying to rack my brain.
Yeah. Oh, for the rest of your favorite
Who's
villains?
The guy. This just isn't coming to my head.
Yeah.
Who is the villain in the original Clone Saga? What's that villain's name?
Oh, are you talking about? Wow, now my head's not going to it either. Now I can think about his Spider-Man villains I don't like.
Yeah.
Jackal.
Jackal. Yeah.
You like the Jackal?
I like the Jackal.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know if he's at the top of my list, but I like the Jackal. But yeah, I think Doc Ock, Black Cat, Venom. I think.
Okay.
I really
Cool.
like Black Cat now because of Spider-Man 2, the video game. Like, I think that's kind of what made me like her a lot.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
She's
No, she's
great
great in
in
that. Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the characters that I like the most with Spider-Man were definitely because of the 90s show.
Yeah.
And Black Cat is one of those.
And Madam Web.
Okay, sure. She's not a villain though.
Yeah, I guess she's not.
But one of the characters that I think most about related to Spider-Man, even still to this day, even after Daredevil and everything, is like the Netflix show and everything, is Kingpin, just because Kingpin is like the mastermind of that show.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for me, even to this day, not to rank Kingpin as one of my favorite Spider-Man villains, because I think of him as a Spider-Man villain.
Yeah.
And, I mean, certainly as a Daredevil villain. But I almost think of them as different characters, you know?
I do, too. Well, I mean...
Like, you have the 90s Spider-Man Kingpin.
Yeah, and then
you have, you know, Vincent D'Onofrio, and then you have the Outlaw.
I'm an outlaw!
There's a lot of shades of Kingpin.
Yeah. And I really like Kingpin in the PS4 game. He's great.
Yeah,
in that.
he is good in that. Mutale has another super chat. Thanks, man. Do you find it strange that the Amazing Films chose to focus on Peter's parents as scientists? They didn't have them make the Venom suit like Ultimate did. I mean, like, maybe that was coming, although you wouldn't want them to be like the easy story device behind freaking everything like they were up to that second movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I am kind of surprised that wasn't. Maybe I've thought about this or talked about this before, but yeah, I mean that's a good call. That there wasn't any kind of setup for that.
Yeah.
And that would have been the way, even if it wasn't with the parents. That's the way the Amazing movies would have had to handle Venom, considering they were looking so much at Ultimate anyway.
Yeah.
You should read the Ultimate comics finally, by the way.
I should.
That's Bendis. And I think you would really resonate with that stuff.
Mm.
You probably haven't spent a lot of time with Spider-Man comics.
No, I haven't. I spent a little more time with Flash, comics-wise.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Because when I was little, I was a big Flash guy and I was a big Spider-Man guy. Like, Flash was my DC guy, and Spider-Man was my Marvel guy.
And if you're talking Wally West Flash, these are very related characters.
Yeah. I was more Barry Allen because of CW and stuff.
But Barry Allen in the CW show is more Wally Westy than he is Barry Allen, certainly, so.
Yeah.
Which is the thing we do a lot, but I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Where is it?
And now I'm actually more of like a Green Lantern guy when it comes to DC, but...
Yeah. How excited, I know this isn't the topic, but how excited are you, and this will date this, but how excited are you about Fillion?
Oh man, I'm so excited about that, because my favorite Green Lantern is Guy Gardner, and I also love Fillion, so he's perfect for that.
It's really like Gunn reached into your brain and cast it the way you would have cast it.
Yeah.
Speaking of Spider-Man comics, I got some stuff recently that I'll go ahead and share. I bought a bunch of comics over the last couple weeks. My dad, who runs a flea market, sold me a bunch of stuff. I mean, anytime he gets a collection in, he'll call me and help me gap fill, which is super cool of him. So I got a little bit of Spider-Man that way. But I also did some antiquing on the trip I just took with my wife. And there's a store right outside of where her mother lives that I always buy a lot of books at. And he's always got Silver and Bronze Age stuff really reasonably. And I gap fill there, and I find keys and stuff. So anyway, I'll show you those first. Here is amazing, and I don't know how he gets this stuff in this condition. They always look like this. Mm-hmm. It's like he must be going to the same well or something, and I don't think he is, but just the condition is always almost identical across the board with his older stuff. Here is amazing number 185, where Peter Parker goes to college. And I don't know if I had to... if I had to guess at a condition right off, this is probably like I don't know, maybe a 7.5. Like it's pretty nice. And then and I pop these open, and the interiors aren't too faded. It's pretty good. And then here is amazing 190. This is a Man-Wolf issue.
What a...
And I think I bought these for 20 or 30 a piece. What are you gonna say?
What era is this?
This would be early 70s.
Early 70s.
Or
Okay.
early to mid 70s. Okay, and then I'll just run through the rest of these real quick. I got some, let's see, this is Marvel Tales 172, and then I got the Spectacular Annual 13. I get filled some books that I haven't gotten anything from in a long time. I got some Spectaculars.
Oh yeah, that's spectacular.
I don't think I've bought Spectacular in probably 5 or 10 years. And then there's also the Annual 14. I need to bag and board a couple of these. Spectacular 173. Forgive me if you're just listening to this, by the way. I'm showing these on camera right now. Here is Amazing Annual 14, which just says Spider-Man at the top, but we didn't have a book just called Spider-Man back then. This actually is amazing. It's weird. They had a period where they did that. And then... And I think it's because...
Oh, it's Doctor Strange.
I'll speak to this for just a second. I think there were some books at Marvel that ultimately we thought of with the subheadings or like the descriptor words, and then there were others where we didn't, right? So when you talk about old Iron Man, I'm pretty sure I'm right about this. If you look up early issues of Iron Man, you're just looking up Iron Man, even though they say Invincible Iron Man. Where like Invincible is just, you know, an extra word, but that series is not actually thought of as Invincible Iron Man. But Amazing Spider-Man is thought of as amazing going all the way back. Yeah. And then it gets really convoluted when you look at X-Men history with that. Because Uncanny X-Men is uncanny, but then sometimes it's just X-Men. Yeah. It gets really confusing. Here is Web of number 9. I think I finally have all of these Web of Scarlet Spiders. That was a miniseries. And then I got Spider-Man Saga number 3. So yeah, just gap-filled some stuff. Spectacular 166. Spider-Man Friends and Enemies number 4. Some things that I had like one issue of. Speaking of Kingpin, that is a giant Kingpin. This is Web of Spider-Man 84. Again, Web of. Haven't bought any of this in a long time. Web of 104. Here's a Punisher issue. Spectacular 143. Ooh. I'm almost through these. Spectacular 154. Hey, look. And now, the Cadre.
Oh, man.
Web of Spider-Man Annual 9. Pardon me. Spider-Man Classics number 2. I had the first issue of this forever and never found any more of these. And then here is Web of 55. And this was advertised for a long time as look, Spider-Man, the non-mutant superhero. Like, X-Men was so popular in the 80s. We had to make a huge deal out of Spider-Man is the non-mutant.
What about all the other superheroes?
I know.
That are also not mutants. Like, what about all the Avengers?
Stussy, Cap, in your recent speculation cast, you mentioned rebooting. Thanks for watching that. Rebooting the MCU. How would you approach that, considering how much the MCU has already cherry-picked from Marvel's history? I mean, that's tough, and I don't want to speak too much to that here because we've already danced too much in other arenas while we're trying to talk about Spider-Man. We'll get back to Spider-Man in a second. Yeah. But I don't know. Do you have any immediate thoughts about that? Like, if you were going to, what we were talking about is, since DC is full on rebooting. Yeah. And since a lot of people are kind of losing interest in the MCU at large, like there's maybe pockets they care about, that's not to say that there aren't ways that we can maybe get people excited about it again. But right now it's feeling to a lot of people is a little dire, or maybe a lot dire, where it's just kind of a shadow of its former self. And we were postulating, is it possible that if Superman Legacy does really well, especially the first couple movies in their universe, could Disney decide to just flat out reboot Marvel? And if they were to do that, what would be the approach? Because to his point, with some of the major stories and pieces of stories that we've adapted with the MCU, there's the worry about a lot of rehash.
Yeah.
Now, how would you even do it?
I don't know. Maybe you start with like a different team that's not the Avengers.
Well, you start with Fantastic Four.
You start with Fantastic
You
Four.
have them now.
Which is what I was thinking.
That's supposed to be Marvel's first family. You start there.
Yeah.
What would be really cool
there.
is if you wouldn't have to make them exactly the stories from the comics.
Right.
But what if you introduced at least the first several major characters and teams?
Yeah.
In the order that they came out.
Yeah.
In the 60s.
Yeah.
You went, here's FF, here's Spider-Man, here's X-Men, whatever the order was that they actually came out in.
You could introduce Spider-Man in a Fantastic Four movie as well.
That's not a bad idea.
I mean,
that's not a bad idea.
It'd be really funny if he was introduced as Bagman and
Bagman?
then became Spider-Man. That would be funny.
He's just this the side character in that movie that
Yeah.
we haven't even dealt with his origin yet. I mean, it would suck to have to reboot Spider-Man yet again.
Right.
But yeah, if he shows up and he's like, hey, I want to be part of the Fantastic Four, and he's introduced as this real pompous, arrogant kid who just doesn't know what he's doing, and they're like, yeah, you can't be part of our team, and he's like, screw you guys.
Yeah.
And then he swings off. That's a fantastic idea, actually.
Yeah.
Well done. And way to wend it back around to Spider-Man, too.
Yeah.
I was impressed with that. Mutale, another super chat. Thank you, sir. With Christian Bale now having been in DC and the MCU, what character should he play in Sony's Villainverse or their Spider-Verse films?
Oh man. Ooh, who should Christian Bale play in the Sony Villainverse?
In the stupid Spider-Man shared universe that doesn't have Spider-Man in it?
Yeah, what?
Uncle Ben. Still have no Spider-Man, but we have Uncle Ben. No, I'm joking. What would I mean, you can't get too silly with this. You know, certainly. Right. J. Jonah Jameson.
No.
I'm gonna go with the Jackal.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, actually.
I think that works.
I was gonna say the Shocker.
Yeah.
Christian Bale's standalone Shocker film.
That actually would work.
It'd be hard not to just make it what we did with Vulture and Michael Keaton all over again.
Yeah.
Who also had the Shocker working for him. That's a great question, though.
Yeah.
By the way.
Also, who should Ben Affleck play? Because he hasn't been in the MCU
Ben Affleck hasn't been in the MCU yet.
But he's...
Galactus,
yeah.
Ben Affleck has Galactus.
Yeah, that works.
Ben Affleck is Silver Surfer.
Maybe like 20 years ago.
Ben Affleck as the live-action version of The Spot.
Mm-hmm. That would work, actually.
I could just keep going.
Yeah.
Ben Affleck as Doppelganger.
That's what I was thinking.
Chameleon's good. Christian Bale's Chameleon is good.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I don't hate that. Let's see what else people are saying in the comments here, Jason. Real quick, what other animated series have you seen? We tend to go through all these when we do these kind of discussions.
Okay, what have I seen?
Have you seen any Spectacular?
I haven't seen any Spectacular.
Okay, we'll have to do that at some point.
I also haven't seen Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, which I've also wanted to watch.
I want to do a mini marathon on that. I think that could be hilarious.
Yeah. And I think I might have seen an episode of the 60s show.
Mm-hmm. I have that on disc.
I think I watched that with you on the first 24-hour stream. Okay.
And Dan and I and Austin did a mini marathon on that once.
Okay. What other Spider-Man series are there? I know I've watched.
You ever seen the MTV show?
No.
Do you know about that?
No.
There is a computer-generated. Get this. Okay, everybody watching this will probably know about this, but there is a computer-generated MTV, like CG MTV show. Okay. From the early 2000s that was trying to tie into the Fox movies because they had TV rights, but they didn't have movie rights. So, I don't think it was supposed to actually be in canon with that, but they were using iconography that looked more like those movies. So, they had a Black Kingpin. I think that's the only other place where we ever had a Black Kingpin. At least in extra media. I may be wrong about that, but that's he doesn't come out with the Outlaw song though.
No. I'm an outlaw.
He doesn't go. Somebody always does.
Somebody always does.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was Neil Patrick Harris as Spider-Man.
Spider-Man?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. It was only on for 13 episodes. And hilariously, the CG gets incrementally better episode to episode. So the first show feels like they rushed it out, and it feels almost like a web show or something. Like there's no cars on the streets. Like it feels very half finished. And it looks a little bit better, a little bit more textured as it goes along.
Yeah.
I've also wanted to do a marathon on that, but
yeah, that would be fun. I actually haven't heard of that.
Yeah, we'll watch that sometime.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever watched all of it. If so, it's been so long. Sorry, just checking to see what else folks are talking about here. So yeah, you need to read more comics.
Yeah.
I definitely want to give you some Ultimate.
Yep.
And you mentioned Clone Saga. I feel like you were reading through like some part of Amazing at one point. Where like you went and you picked a number and you were going forward.
So I was wanting to read. I think I've only read a couple issues so far. But I wanted to read the original Clone Saga.
Which is like 4 or 6 issues or something,
like,
right?
Yeah, it's like 10 issues.
Oh, is it that long?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's some like aftermath.
Yeah. But have you ever read any of like the big stories or just the key issues and stuff, like Death of Gwen Stacy or any of that stuff?
I've wanted to read the Death of Gwen Stacy episode or issue, but
yeah, I feel remiss in not giving you some of that, like some of the McFarlane drawn black suit stuff.
Yeah. I think I've read a little bit of that, but not
You're
much.
definitely old enough to read Kraven's Last Hunt now.
Mm-hmm.
Which you would probably love. So we should do that at some point. And again, we should do Maximum Carnage because it's hilarious. I don't care what anybody says. I still love Maximum Carnage.
And I've read a little bit of the of when he has 6 arms.
Oh, cool. Yep. That was also a big deal to me because of the cartoon show.
Yeah.
With the 90s show, I had the same thing I did with X-Men, where I assumed that because it was directly adapting from comics, because you know, I hadn't read a lot yet, but you'd hear comic fans talk about it and be like, the way they do 6 arms and like the lizard origin and all that, like it's right off the page. I assumed that they were just taking the comics just as they were and putting them on screen.
Oh. And
like in order. And I had a rude awakening when I realized that, oh wait, when Stan Lee did it, like Peter Parker was a high school kid? Like I didn't know that. Like I thought he was always a college kid. I thought he only wore a brown jacket. Adam March, Jason should read Ultimate and Lee Ditko. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are the big ones. But of course, I think the stuff you'd probably appreciate the most is like early mid 80s Amazing and Ultimate.
Yeah. Okay.
And maybe the JMS run, as much as I don't like Moreland, and I've never read all of that. But I'm just thinking, like, your sensibilities, you probably would appreciate that too.
Yeah.
Do you know about that run?
No.
One of the now both seminal and infamous runs for Spider-Man is GMS's run, because it's beautifully written, most of it, but it gave us Moreland and the Spider Totem stuff, which I don't like. But it ends with a thing that he was forced to do that he didn't want to do and pulled his name off of it, I think, or wanted to, which is One More Day.
Okay.
And that's where everybody's minds are wiped so that they don't know that he's Spider-Man, and there's the whole thing so that he can save Aunt May, and it's really bad. And they did it to break up the marriage. And unfortunately, these days, I feel like I'm doing it too. I feel like it's impossible to talk about Spider-Man without talking about the like big, massive missteps, both in comics and on film. And I guess you could say that about other characters as well. But like even with Batman, I think that's a character that's easier to talk about without bringing up the big failures all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, like with maybe the exception of Batman and Robin and stuff, where people still to some degree tend to do that, where it's like, oh, I remember Batman and Robin. Yes, we all remember the bad credit card. Okay, whatever. But with Spider-Man, it's one more day. Like it always got, like I just did it. It always comes up. Oh, that's cool. Stussy says that Marvel Legends is making a 2-pack with 6-armed Spider-Man and Morbius.
Oh, that's cool.
Morbius, a character that no one would know if it weren't for the 90s show.
Yeah.
It's the only reason anybody's familiar with
I
that.
remember he was one of my favorite characters in that show. He's cool.
Felicia!
I do think the 90s Spider-Man show is not as good as the 90s X-Men show. Because I love the 90s X-Men show.
Oh, it definitely isn't. It's definitely the inferior show.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, with X-Men, we'll have to do one of these for X-Men at some point.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking about that this morning.
Did you almost go for X-Men?
I almost did, but...
So, I would assume that the animated show with that is where your brain immediately goes when you think of X-Men.
Oh, yeah.
What is it for Spider-Man? I mean, I know this kind of goes into territory we've tackled already, but like for me, when I think Batman, who's of course my favorite superhero, next to maybe the Tick, they're kind of tied. But like when I think Batman,
do you think Keaton?
It's a tie, and it's almost based on mood. Like I either go to Keaton or I go to Conroy, right? So with you, like if somebody just brings up Spider-Man,
yeah,
where does your brain go? What are you most in the mood for?
Well, it's kind of the same thing for me. It either goes to Raimi or Amazing.
But it doesn't go to the 90s show. It goes to movies.
No, yeah.
Interesting.
Or it'll go to like early Amazing.
But see, I just think that's an interesting perspective
60s.
to have. Okay. I just think that's an interesting perspective to have because when I was a kid, we didn't have a live-action Spider-Man movie until I was a junior in high school.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't have the kind of nostalgia for that other people do. I have some, to some degree, certainly. But, like, as my childhood brain says Spider-Man is a comic book character and Spider-Man is a cartoon character. It wasn't a movie yet.
Yeah. And I watched the movies a lot when I was like, I
guess I didn't realize that.
I watched them over and over again.
Did you?
Yeah. And
even that first Amazing film?
Or
was it the
Raimi films? And then I watched Amazing a little bit, but then I really grew to appreciate that movie, like, as time went on more.
Yeah, that's interesting, because to me, the movies are kind of almost a secondary thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of that's just chronology for me.
Yeah.
It's just what I was invested in early. Because I don't have that as much with X-Men for whatever reason, and those started not too far off from the same time. So I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I latched so hard on X2.
Yeah.
That, like, it supplanted some of the other X-Men stuff for me, and that never really happened with Spider-Man.
Well,
like, for me, Spider-Man is all about, like, Black Costume and Venom and stuff that some of my friends don't care anything about. But.
Yeah. I was watching this guy on Twitch. He's playing PS4 Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And he was, I was one of the, I was, like, one of, like, 5 people in the chat. And we were talking about, like, Spider-Man stuff, and he was like, how many Spider-Man movies have you seen in the theater? And I was like, or in the cinema, because he's British. And I was like, 6. And he's like, what, 6? I haven't I haven't seen any.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Was he really young?
No, he was. Well, I mean, pretty young. He was like 21.
He lives in a country where they say cinema, but they don't even have the cinema. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, he was like early to mid 20s.
But he hadn't been to anything.
He hadn't been to anything.
Nicholas Bodo, are you going to get Spider-Man 2 on PS5? If I do, at this point, it'll be well after it comes out. I had considered trying to get one by the end of the year, but it's the only thing on that system I remotely hear about, and I just can't see dropping the money for it. I'll play through that game once, and then I'll have this, $400 or $500 system sitting there.
Yeah, and Freddy will play through it once.
Yeah. And I know you guys are going to want to play it eventually, but, you just finally played PS4 Spider-Man. We have lots of other things in the house. I don't know. I'm not in a hurry on it.
Yeah. What? Are there any other...
I was going to try to rush it out because I thought the audience would probably want me to talk about it, but there hasn't been, a huge push to get me to review that. And, I think I'm probably going to wait on it. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Are there any other games that you remotely want at all on PS5?
Not that jump to mind. It's kind of all retro stuff on Switch right now.
Yeah. That's true.
Again, maybe eventually, but
yeah.
I don't know. I'm a little bit disenfranchised with the whole thing, to be honest with you. I'm not, and I don't mean to be negative about it, but I'm not excited about the $70 price points.
Yeah.
I'm not excited about, download only, nothing on a disc.
Yeah.
I'm still locked out of my PlayStation account right now, which is part of it. I got hacked in. I got hacked. I still cannot get into that account. And if I have to bite the bullet and start over, I'm going to have to rebuy some DLC for games, and I'm going to have to rebuy probably 3 or 4, not cheap games. And it's just hard to get excited about the whole thing right now.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a big expenditure when I do buy another system if I can't get back on my account.
Yeah.
So this is a personal problem. This is just me, but
you're gonna have to rebuy I Am Bread.
I'm not buying I Am Bread again.
Yeah, you gotta buy I Am Bread.
It's like a $2 game in the first place.
That game is
Remember that?
amazing.
That game is unplayable.
That
man.
game is amazing.
I can't
That's
do it.
one of the best games on the PS4. I love I Am Bread.
That's amazing. We do have to play some other old Spider-Man games. People keep begging me to play through the old PS2 Spider-Man game, which I have on the Dreamcast. And that's a game that DJ likes a lot. It keeps coming up on the Captain Logan show for whatever reason. So I want to do that. I want to play Shattered Dimensions with you at some point on the 360. Do you know about that?
I know that it exists.
Okay, so Shattered Dimensions...
I used to have a poster of it on my wall in my bedroom, but I never played it.
That's right. Well, I think at the time we didn't even own it. But Shattered Dimensions... because I was working at a game store at the time, and I think I borrowed it and then bought it way, way, way later. But anyway, again, who cares? But with Shattered Dimensions, so that was weirdly kind of Spider-Verse before Spider-Verse. It's weirdly ahead of its time. It got ahead of a lot of very, very popular things with Spider-Man now. So it took some things that were popular right then and hadn't been popular in a while and mixed them all together. So it had 4 different Spider-Mans. And I think it was something akin to 616. And then I think it had Ultimate or something like Ultimate. And then it had, somebody correct me if I'm wrong because I haven't played this in a long time, but then it had Noir and it had 2099. And it was the first time we'd seen 2099 in anything forever. And they got Peter David to write it, which is why 2099 was there. And then 2099 got kind of popular again through that game. Like, that was the big thing people latched onto is, oh, this is a really cool looking suit. And everybody caught up to me. It was like, yes, I've loved 2099 forever. And look, people are finally appreciating Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara. And then they did a follow-up that was just 2099 and I think like the regular 616 type Spider-Man. So even when they did another one, the thing everybody latched onto was 2099, and they had Dan Slott write that game. And then sometime after that, Spider-Verse happens in comics, and that brings in 2099 in a big way, and get a follow-up, like a second volume comic series that Peter David wrote. And now he's everywhere. And Alchemax is like deeply involved in Spider-Man stories now, even before you get to 2099.
Yeah.
Which is weird because we've done the same thing with Batman Beyond, I've realized, where we've taken like Powers industry from Batman Beyond and put it in present-day Batman stories. We're doing like exactly the same thing. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Out of March, you can always play the Maximum Carnage game cap, and I do every now and again. Yeah. Stussy, Classic Symbiote 2099, and Noir. Oh, Symbiote. That's right. I forgot all about that. Cinema RX87, do you have any feelings on Harry possibly being Venom in PS5? People seem to hate it when the symbiote attaches to Harry. I don't immediately have a problem with that. That was kind of the assumption I made when we found out that it definitely wasn't going to be Eddie Brock. And I think I might have even had that thought when I played the first game. Like, other things we could do with Harry. Like, is he going to actually be a Green Goblin? Because we didn't do black costume or anything in that game. And it was like, okay, we're clearly gearing up to Venom.
Yeah.
That obviously that's going to be what they do for the second game. So I don't know if I had that thought, but it's not crazy talk. Like, I don't know about you, but like I don't immediately mind that.
I don't really care. I think that is I think that's cool. Like I don't know. I don't really. Yeah, I just don't really care, like, who's Venom. Like, he's just Venom, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess if you have Venom attached to Harry, you gotta come up with a way to make it different enough both from Second Green Goblin and Venom. Mm-hmm. So, like, what's the angle with the personality of the symbiote would be my question.
Yeah.
Like, why does the symbiote like being attached to Harry as much or more than Peter? But the idea of the symbiote having started with Peter and then going to Harry when they used to be best friends and are now enemies, there's obviously, like, clear, interesting character parallel stuff there.
Yeah.
That you can do, where you can... I guess I'm actually answering my own question. Like, the way you make that interesting and the way you make me buy that the symbiote would attach itself to Harry is they have a thing in common. They both feel spurned by Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And so then they're Peter Parker's old best friends that merge together to be his greatest enemy. Oh, there you go. All right, well, we solved it. There it is. That's why you do it. Yeah, that's cool. And that's immediately more interesting than classic... what's his face? I just said it. Venom.
Eddie Brock.
Eddie Brock, yeah. Mutale, another super chat. Jason, are you excited for Kraven and Madam Web?
No.
You just can't wait. You can't wait for Kick-Ass Kraven. Do you know about Kick-Ass Kraven? Do you know that Kraven is played by Kick-Ass?
Wait, really?
Yeah, he gets whatever that actor's name is. I always forget. He gets Kick-Ass, and then he gets Quicksilver, and now he's got Kraven. Kick-Ass Quicksilver
that
Kraven.
That makes it even worse, honestly.
I mean, I like that actor, but he's not the right build or personality type or anything for Kraven the Hunter.
Yeah, no.
And he seemed unrecognizable to me in that first trailer. Somebody had to remind me that's who that was, and I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I read this?
Yeah.
Stussy wants to know if Harry should have been Venom in Raimi's Spider-Man 3.
I think that would have been better.
Yeah, I don't dislike that at all. First of all, New Goblin is a stupid-looking thing. It's not a goblin. It's a guy on a friggin' hoverboard with dumb goggles. Oh, buddy, old Powell friend. And the team-up was with Sandman was like classic was outdated and contrived and too easy. And they should have. I just mean the team up with Sandman and with Sandman and with Venom. They should have combined their two of their three villains, Venom and New Goblin, to create a new villain named Venom.
Yeah.
And then Maybe keep Sandman, maybe not, or maybe have Sandman be more of a secondary. We beat him in the first act kind of villain.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it's Austin.
It's Austin.
How you doing, man? We just hung out with Austin last night. We didn't stream it or anything, but we were playing Jackbox.
Yeah.
And it's always funny playing that with
It's always
Austin.
fun playing that with Austin.
He says Raimi's original idea for Venom is the best Venom. I don't even remember that anymore. He's told me that, and it just I forget what it was. He will remind me, and then I'll be like, oh yes, that's right, because we've talked about that somewhat recently, but in the moment I cannot remember what that was.
We need to rebuy Spider-Man 2 because that's a great game.
I think even the movie, I'm like, I have a nice copy of Spider-Man 2. I don't know why.
But yeah, that's a great game.
Why do I have to rebuy Spider-Man 2?
Cause it doesn't work.
It doesn't? My
It
GameCube copy?
Yeah, your GameCube copy, the save data is all messed up, and it doesn't save anything.
That's probably not the game, though. That's probably...
Nah, it's... I've tried it with a bunch of different
I don't believe you! But no, I'll look into that. Red Ranger 241. Hi there. That's a name I don't recognize. You know what? I haven't been doing this for Super Chats, but I'll give him a gong. Good to see you. I'm somewhat... He's never coming back. He's like, oh my god, that was loud. I'm somewhat interested in Madam Web due to the rumors of the plot and because I love Sydney Sweeney. We'll see what happens. We'll see what the trailers look like. Nicholas Bodo, favorite Venom story.
He's gonna go to some Agent Venom thing.
I mean, I love Agent Venom. Yeah, the first couple arcs of that are just wonderful.
I can't answer that.
You gotta read some more. Yeah. Austin, Raimi Venom is slowly eating Brock, and then he's a skeleton by the end of the movie. Maybe I didn't know this. Is this true? Which is why the symbiote is so big? It absorbs its mass, so at a certain point, he'd stop peeling the face back. Plays way more with Raimi horror. Yeah, I like the idea, the look of that.
Yeah, I like the idea of it being a lot more like Evil Dead and stuff.
Do you think he'd still say, hey God, I want you to kill Peter Parker? It's my favorite moment in that movie.
Yeah.
Does that movie even know how absurd that is? When you go in the church, he goes in the church to pray to God to kill Peter Parker. It's amazing. No, Austin, maybe I didn't know that. But yeah, as far as good Venom stories, I haven't read it in a while, and I don't remember it super well, but I do remember like a lot of people really liking the Kate stuff. I read the first 25 issues of that, and I need to get back to it, but he finally made Eddie Brock interesting, and he solidified the lore wonderfully well, and made the Planet Venom and the Clintar thing and all of that kind of come together and make a lot more sense. But yeah, I mean, I have to just go with the classic black costume stuff, and then the initial, first Venom confrontation. Beyond anything is Venom with Venom as a hero or an anti-hero. Other random Spider-Man stuff we gathered at the desk, and then we'll go ahead and leave you off.
Spider-Man Tiger handheld.
Jason collects the reproductions of the Tiger handhelds.
Yeah.
And I guess some old tigers when you can find them. But yeah, what is that one like?
You swing, and you run up a building, and you dodge things, and, not much happens. And, the kick button, swings.
So
shoots a web. And
so is that one kind of inferior to some of the others?
Yes.
You don't like it as well?
No. I have a hard time with this one.
He's playing it right now.
That's not what a punch looks like.
Here is one of the Diamond Select statues. This is from maybe 3 years ago. 2 or 3 years ago. This is the only Spider-Man I've got because it's in the McFarlane style.
Oh man, he's got actual spider web on him. That's awesome.
It's great. Well, and then check out the web that's attached to the back of the chimney here.
Yeah.
That's super cool. But yes, this is one of my favorites. When I think of Spider-Man, this is the look I think of. Oh, and he's got like real spider webs.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Oops.
He has like a real spider web.
I love the giant eyes. I love the more sinister looking eyes.
Yeah.
I love the intricate webbing,
Yeah.
and I love that pose.
Yeah, it's a really cool pose. Is that really the only Spider-Man you have?
I mean, it's the only Diamond Select statue I have of Spider-Man. I have other Spider-Man things.
Well, yeah, I know, but like, is that the only Spider-Man statue you had?
I think so, yeah.
Actually, Spider-Man, not just Spider-Man things, because you have like Venom and Carnage back there, and you have
I do.
some...
Austin says they should have restored that Venom he was talking about in the stupid editor's cut. Yeah, but that would have cost some money, because there's no way they had any of those effects done. Red Ranger 241, I would love to see an MCU Venom not played by Tom Hardy. Yeah, me too. I want them to get away from the SSU Venom as far as possible. Agreed? Austin wants to know, and we'll go ahead and wrap up here in a second. I think this is the longest of these we've done, Jason.
Yeah.
But we've got a nice crowd, people asking questions. Thanks for being here, guys. Austin wants to know, Jason, who is your favorite Spider-Man villain? We already talked about that, actually. He says mine is Mysterio and then Scorpion. Sorry, I didn't
Yeah, I said...
read through that real quick before.
I said Doc Ock and then Black Cat and then Venom.
Do you have a favorite kind of secondary street level sort of villain, like an Electro or a Shocker or a Rhino or like Chameleon, any of those guys?
I don't really like any of those guys.
They don't do much for you.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you
Rhino's
this.
Fine.
So I was going to ask you this earlier, but you've kind of answered it now, because I was going to ask you if you would put the Spider-Man Rogues Gallery anywhere close to the Batman's Rogues Gallery.
No.
Because to the Batman Rogues Gallery, because there are definitely people that put the Spider-Man Rogues above the Batman Rogues.
I don't
And
like the Spider-Man Rogues that well. Like,
wow.
they're...
Wow. Them's fighting words
I know.
for a lot of folks.
I just prefer the Batman Rogues Gallery. I feel like if the Batman Rogues Gallery didn't exist, I would prefer the or I would like the Spider-Man Rogues Gallery a bit better. If it didn't exist, I would very much prefer it a lot better than it, because it doesn't exist.
I mean, if that guy was running unopposed, absolutely I'd vote for him. Austin says those are good choices.
Yeah.
Guys, we're going to go ahead and get going. Thanks so much for watching. We'll answer this last question real quick, Jason. Red Ranger 241, favorite movie suit? For me, it's the final suit at the end of No Way Home. Hope they use it in Spider-Man 4. I like the partly black suit in Homecoming actually a lot better than that suit. I think that's my favorite from that continuity. But as far as overall, maybe that is my favorite suit actually overall.
I like the stupid one from Civil War.
You like the stupid Civil War suit?
Yeah.
That I was excited about when we saw it at the end of Homecoming when he wasn't in it yet. And everybody said that is the stupidest thing ever. And I'm like, oh, I thought it looked pretty cool. And then he wears it in Civil War. Well, everybody's right. It's really, really dumb.
Yeah.
Do you like... So, you love Amazing. Do you like the basketball suit?
I do like the basketball suit. I play as him in PS4 Spider-Man.
Do you really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
My favorite... Yeah, that's probably my favorite movie suit.
Really?
Yeah.
I think the Amazing 2 suit actually looks really good.
Or the Spider-Man 2 suit. Like the upgraded one.
Oh, actually, sorry, Were we talking about Civil War? I guess I was talking about, Wars. I guess I was talking about the stupid, like, robot armor suit.
Yeah.
In Infinity War. But no, you were talking about...
The one in Civil War.
Is the one from the... Yeah.
Yeah.
The first one we see.
Yeah, the first one we see.
Yeah, that one's good, too.
I was just really excited that we got Spider-Man again when I watched that in Civil War. Or when I watched Civil War for the first time, I was like, oh, man, it's Spider-Man.
Even though
you didn't know about it.
Even though you didn't like Amazing 2, were you at the time, and of course you were a lot younger, but were you at the time, like, sad not to get the Sinister Six, third movie? Like, the big resolution?
Yeah,
make that a trilogy?
I mean, now, yeah.
Or you sad not to have it now,
yeah. Now. But back then, I didn't really know about any of that, like, it was even happening or
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't know about any of it. So.
Well, weirdly, we almost got a solo Sinister Six movie
Yeah.
that was announced around the same time as Suicide Squad.
That would have been a good year.
And then we end up with this. Maybe not though, man, because then we end up with this weird, shared Spider-Man universe without Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It probably would have gone. It would have been a team movie that was sort of like Venom, but I don't think it would have performed. I still don't get why Venom performed, really, but.
Yeah.
Austin says he's not a fan of the Amazing 2 one because he looks like a weird lanky guy with an alien head.
What's your favorite suit outside of movies? Is it Ben Reilly?
No, it's $20.99.
Oh, okay. Because for
If
me,
I can count everything,
Ben Reilly.
If I can count suits worn by people that aren't Peter Parker, yeah.
Yeah.
For Peter Parker, it's black costume.
For Peter
That will
Parker,
always be my favorite, like classic Spider-Man suit.
For Peter Parker, that's probably for me too. Yeah. Do you like Nova?
No, I've never cared about Nova. Why are we
Okay.
talking about Nova?
I don't know. That's that's a Spider-Man character, right?
It's a Marvel character.
He shows up in Spider-Man things
Sure.
sometimes.
He also shows up in, or at least that idea, it's in the first Guardians movie, but we don't have like the character Nova. But like,
we should have a Nova MCU movie.
sure, I'm sure that'll do just as well as Eternals and Shang-Chi.
And Shang-Chi. The Ten Rings will
There's reason.
come back.
There's reason to do Nova. I don't know if anybody's gonna care.
Yeah. Just not the main character
Don't do it,
in the
man.
title of the movie.
What I thought you were gonna say is we should do a Jason wants to talk about Nova, and I'll be like, well, that is a minute and a half long podcast.
I don't know anything about Nova.
I don't know anything about Nova. Oh, Austin just said it before I did. Jason wants to talk about Nova. Okay, guys, we're really gonna get going now. Thanks a lot for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll try to do another one of these for you in probably a couple weeks. We're going on a vacation with Sarah's family next week, so I won't have any content next week. But then we'll be back to normal the week after, and 2 or 3 weeks, Jason and I will come back and do another fun, kind of laid-back podcast for you. And Jason, I've just been really enjoying these, man.
Yeah.
It's been fun reminiscing about these kind of broader things. So anyway, we'll see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan.
I was Jason.
Bye, everybody.